What? Oh, come on, man. Alright, welcome back. In this one, I will be going through whatever is needed for the Speeduino ECU to work. And I'll start off with the harness, the new engine harness. Basically, as you saw in the previous video, I traced everything out on board to see where it branches off and where everything goes to get the length. And the only thing actually needed for this 4 AGE engine is, I'll start from the back. This is a temperature sensor for coolant. On the 4 AGE there is 2 on the back because it runs off a few different systems, and enrichment system for cold starts, and it has an extra injector for that. Everything goes into separate modules, but the Speeduino can combine this and run idle and cold start enrichment of the main injectors. So of the 2 temperature sensors in the back, you only need 1. I have no idea if it's the same, but this is what I'm going to be using. I actually suspect you can use both of them, so you can just switch over. I'm going to do some measurements on it to make sure that it will work. So, temperature sensor for coolant, temperature sensor on the inlet manifold for air temperature. That's also pretty important. Then we have the 4 injectors, of course, and the 4 COPs, which are grounded through the harness. On the intake manifold, I'm going to be doing a start point, as it's called, for a lot of the grounds to this point, and then grounding the intake manifold, obviously, to the chassis of the car. Moving on, what we actually need here is throttle position sensor, also very important, crank position sensor, crank trigger, and this is for the TVIS system. I have no idea what that abbreviation stands for, but this is something to do with you have 8 small ports in the big port engine. A bit weird, but I think it has something to do with low range torque, as the big channels will just, I don't know. Go Google it, but this is to make sure that it opens when you get above a certain setting of RPM. I'll be playing around with that and seeing if that's the case, seeing what the best response will be. Maybe you can do a table with combined load, RPM, duty cycle, injectors, TPS. Put a load of stuff in there and have it open as you want, and not just as a set point at specific RPM. So I'll see what I can get out of that. But that is basically what you need. It's not really that much. Other than that, this is a wideband controller. I'm going to be wiring to the interior of the car. That's why this is not on the harness. And to a wideband O2 sensor. And my Ae86 doesn't come with a no AFR sensor at all. But I can see in the cast exhaust manifold there is room for drilling it out and tapping it, but I'm gonna be welding this bong on further down the line on the exhaust. I think that'll improve longevity of this sensor because they don't really last that long. I haven't blown any one of these. This is a Boss sensor. I haven't blown any one of these out yet, and I have had some pretty power and pressure going through those, so on turbo cars, which this is not yet. Alright, this crap. So today I am going to be focusing on getting this trigger ring for the crank trigger put on this. This has been turned down on my body and added like a small lip that this will be placed on. I need to work out where I want the missing tooth in conjunction with the top dead center marker. I think I want them apart by some degree. Also, I need to go work out where on the engine that this trigger is going to be, but it's going to be basically something like this. It's going to be mounted off a point on the block. So I need to make sure that the gap doesn't align with the top dead center part, because that's going to make it a bit hard to determine. So I think I'm going to be doing something like this. And then in the tuner software, you can set up, you can degree the engine, set off the point in, I think it's 5 or 10 degree increments. It could be one, can't remember, but you can set it off as where the top dead center is compared to this missing tooth, and that'll tell the Speeduino when to fire. So this is all kind of brand new to me. I've always used AEM, and on my last build, one of the previous builds, my 350C twin turbo, I used an AEM Infinity, which is a lot more pricey. Has a lot of features that this Speeduino doesn't. I think I will cover that as we get into it, into programming and opening up the ECU on the computer and seeing what you can do with it. Because yeah, as I said, this is new ground for me. I always wanted to learn this, but I always thought it was, I don't know, hard, but I always put it into other people's hands. So this is kind of my take on what is needed, and this is what I usually work with, wiring and controlling, and so this is fun. So let's get the thing on and get it on the car and see where we go from there. And there you have it. One pretty sturdy bracket to hold the Hall effect sensor. Very close and very precise to the trigger wheel. This needs to be about 1 millimeter, I think, something like that, apart. That being done, engine harness time. This is the old stock harness. Actually, this is one of 2 harnesses I've tried on the car, but this one wasn't the correct one. It doesn't matter because it's all cut up anyway. So I'm going to take this apart all the way down to single strands, map it out where all the connectors are, what they do, and go through basically all the auxiliary stuff the car needs, turning signals, horns, lights, everything like that, wipers, washer bottle. I think there's some dash features in there too, oil pressure, water temperature, all that stuff that runs off separate sensors and not off the ECU is being fed from this harness. So taking it all apart and then basically laying it out, getting to see and comparing to both my notes and the electrical wiring overview to see exactly what is needed and where. And then I'm gonna be making up my own using some of these connectors and just using whatever the car needs, nothing more. So let's get all this cleaned up.
And that's basically done with the auxiliary wiring harness, just getting the last crimp on the last few wires. Always a pain in the ass to get these on single strands. They don't want to go in, and when you get them like halfway, the wires always noodle spaghetti up on you. So getting the last things crimped on there. Make sure to use crimps that won't enclose and hold the cables, but will crimp down to a size where it allows everything to move freely inside. So this is an auxiliary sealed harness, glued sealed epoxy ends, and I made injectors for this. Is for the transmission, for reverse. This is for oil pressure, I think, and this is for water temperature. Yeah, there you go. So, time to get this in the car. All this crap is also going to be removed. I'm going to remove this harness as well, and get all this stuff out of it. And this is basically the big connector that normally sits on the firewall, somewhere like here. But I'm gonna reroute it and hide it under the little electrical box here. And everything has been made into length so that it will fit. And it'll run all the way over here and connect up to where it needs to connect. And be, well, hidden kind of low in the engine bay. So let's get all this old shit out of the way. That out of the way, it's time to install the wideband. This is a standalone wideband unit, as I need the controller. That'll put out a, I think you can designate what kind of signal you want. But this is being fed to the Speeduino, which will adjust accordingly. So this needs to be somewhere back on the exhaust. I'm gonna be putting it around 1 meter. And have a small tilt upwards, not to get water and condensation in the sensor, because they don't really like that. So this can, well, not easily, but it can be done on the car. Just make sure you prep everything up good and be able to weld it from up top. Then you actually can fit it on the car. So that going in, wiring harness, alternator, belts, the lot. And there you go. This is basically being put together and ready to try and fire it up. So pretty stoked about that. I've chosen not to have the cooling fan on for the first couple of times, because I want to be able to get a timing gun in there good and not cut my fingers off. So this is the coil on plug I'll be using. This from a 1UC Toyota V8. So these are pretty good and proven and tested coils. And this is a perfect smart coil with a high output that you can mate up to the Speeduino. I'll need to make some sort of a plate to fit it, but I think for now I'll just drill some holes and get it on there. Alright, new day. Today I'll be focusing on some of the plugs that needs to be made. I'm going to be focusing on building another idle valve setup, because the Ae86 has a pretty weird idle valve system, which includes some funny stuff. This is also going to be covered up. This is the old hole from the distributor, which goes in there, runs off the cam. I won't be needing that since I get all the signals I need from the crank. So I need to get the throttle body off. Here you see some of the old idle valve stuff, which is controlled by water and a wax capsule. So let's get all this stuff off and see what we're dealing with. Having all that taken apart, you can clearly see the idle valve here at the bottom where it bolts on, and here the throttle body is without. You can see that big chamber is on the inside of the throttle body, and the inlet port is the small round hole. So I made this block off plate that I'll be making and threading a hole through the engine side of the throttle body, where I'll put on a valve so I can control it. And then I made this little ugly thing which goes on the hole from the distributor. And I wanted to make like some chunky stuff, but I don't know, it just looked off with a big square piece there. So this actually follows the shape, so I'm gonna draw some stupid shit on it, and let's go from there. Maybe I need to clean this out a bit, I'll see. But basically, plate's done, throttle body taken apart. It's time to do to lay everything out. So this is idle control valve from a much bigger engine, so I hope I can use this, or I maybe have to put in some sort of a restrictor. I actually have all the hoses and everything I need to hook it up, but nah, everything else being so retarded on this car, I think I need to dig into this box and get some AN fittings. So yeah, I'll probably do it well on bong. So this is basically going to be the setup. Threaded hole in the block plate, and adapters and AN fittings coming down to the valve, and another adapter weld on bung to the intake pipe. I think I'm missing a square part, but yeah, that's basically it. So let's get this knocked out.
what I'm trying to do is figure out why I don't have my 12-volt ignition supply to the Speeduino. This should come from this fuse box, which normally powers the ECU. As to the original drawings, I made this up in the new harness so that it should be powered from the same relay, but no power's getting through. But I did change all of the harness in the engine bay, and there are three sub harnesses: engine harness, an auxiliary harness on the right side, and basically an auxiliary harness on the left side. So the only one that is just a little bit as it used to be is the left auxiliary harness. The other one has been made to mate with the Speeduino to make sure that we have all the gauges inside the car working, and wipers and washer. So somewhere along that I might have removed a ground point or something else. So I'm trying to work out where I did something wrong, as I should have power from, this is one, yeah it is, EFI main relay and my engine main relay, which should power on with ignition and send power through this one. But nothing is coming through, so let's get to some measuring. My issue was that I wasn't getting power through to the ECU, and I couldn't find this one. This red and black wire is put together with this green, which is, as you can see, broken. So that was the problem all along, I suspect. That is the one that feeds all these EFI, come on, which again go through the EFA main relay and should go back to the engine. This is why it probably had this intermittent fault, that it would run, then it wouldn't run, and then it would have a really hard time starting. Then I would fiddle with everything, and it would work for like a few seconds. You could start it up. I did a burnout, and then the stock ECU started smoking. So I suspect that it had drawn current or power or ground back through the transistors or something like that, literally frying everything. So this would never have worked, but this seems to be the problem. So I'm going to change this out, and I'm going to remeasure everything, make sure I have power for the ECU, and then we are almost ready to start the car.